Do you want to make it full screen?
Yeah, go ahead. Nice. I didn't know you could do that.
That's way better.
All right, cool. Hey guys, welcome to Conspirinormal. It's your host Adam, and this guy right here.
And we don't normally do it all visual, but this time we got a more visual centric episode with some cool collectibles and media from our good friend Chris Corry.
Yeah, so if you are listening to this on the podcast feed, go to YouTube if you want to watch this, because Chris is going to be showing some stuff from his collection that he has, and you guys can also see our awesome poster in the background for Strange Realities 2021. You guys can see all the pictures of the great speakers that we have. Chris, welcome to Conspirinormal, man. Welcome officially to Conspirinormal. You've been on a Patreon episode with the Recluse about Blue Oyster Cult, and now this is kind of like your first, I guess, show on the main feed. So welcome, brother.
Thank you, man. It is an honor.
For sure, man. We're always talking and hanging out on the hangouts, and we came to know you as Mr. Vintage UFOs.
That's right. Yep.
One of your social media handles, and you were always posting pictures of various media, UFO media that you collected, and we linked up like that. And today you're going to get the chance to kind of show some people this stuff and go through the history of UFO media, which is really what big part of what UFOs culture has really been all about is books and magazines and movies and video, and should be pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And you can see Dr. Future just like peeking over your shoulder there. It's
he's always judging you.
Yeah, judging everybody. So what we really want to start talking about, though, because yesterday, we're recording this on June the 1st. It's hard to believe that this is the first day of June and this year is almost to the halfway point. So we want to talk a little bit about Timothy Green Beckley passed away. I guess it was yesterday or the day before. And this was all kind of sudden. I know that he had some health problems, some issues, but I think that you had actually brought some stuff. Did you ever get to actually meet him in person, Chris? I know you met Peter.
Can you see him? Not. I'm terrible.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, we can see it.
That's him and Stan Friedman, pre MJ12.
Wow.
I emailed with him a couple times. I was living in New York for a couple years doing grad school, and it was like one of those things where I was like, I'm going to set something up to meet with this guy, because I've been trying to put together this little compendium on like rock music connections to UFOs. There's a couple out there, but not too many. And so we emailed and we talked about Hendrix, and then I just never got back to it. Now, of course, it's very sad. We've lost a true titan of the weird UFO world, and like the old UFO world, and who was still, I mean, he just put out a book like a month ago, I think.
Yeah.
It's somewhat regrettable.
That doesn't surprise me. I mean, he was very prolific. I mean, he put out a ton of books through his publishing.
Yeah, Inner Light Publishing was one of his publishing arms. I mean, so do you think there's anybody that doesn't know who Tim Beckley is that's listening? Or they're like,
possibly. We've had him on a couple times.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really glad
I've heard him on the show.
Yeah. Really glad we got to connect a little bit, at least, before he passed. But he's just a treasure. But he was just such a great kind of old school entertainment guy too. Mm-hmm. Just like classic.
He's a carnival barker.
Yeah, exactly.
And I mean, the way that I first came to know Tim Beckley was just like these Inner Light publications, sort of oversized floppy books. He published, of course, all the legendary Commander X material, which now I guess it's kind of commonly known that a lot of it was Jim Keith I mean, really what like the Commander X stuff is it's like a watered down version of the Dharma Combat stuff that Jim Keith was publishing, and like, you know, some of that other, you know, his other writings. And, you know, it's, I mean, the secret origins of humankind, mind control, the UFO, the power elite, you know, kind of like the conspiracy stew that I think all of us kind of came into, you know, I don't know, 20 years ago. Most of these books are from the 90s, and they're just like, this is beautiful, man. You just don't see like weird shit like this anymore.
Tons of
UFOs
cross promotion.
Yeah.
So there's always tons of advertising in these things for other volumes in the series. And I can't even count the number of these things that are out there, and the sort of like the different iterations. You know, I've seen there's like really early ones that are like spiral bound, like you would, you know, pick up for a class in college or something like that. And then there's these really, you know, sort of colorful floppy bound style books, and they just have like these great lurid illustrations. Like it's like it's a little bit trashy, but so first of all, I think they do cover.
Popular is a better word, probably.
Yeah, okay. They cover a lot of interesting and good stuff in here, especially if you're maybe not. I mean, before the internet, like this is the kind of stuff you'd pick up in the back of a bookstore, or you'd order in the back of a catalog, and you know, you thought you were finding out the truth. You know, especially, I mean, I grew up watching the X-Files. You know, I bet you guys did too.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
And so like when you get this book and you see this like just bizarre shit, are you really in control? Like you're like, this is the real thing.
This is it.
And then man, like, you know, there's like pictures of redacted documents, and you get like these just kind of like weird illustrations. He had a lot of illustrations by Wes Crum. Do you guys know who that is, of course. But he was like a comics artist. He was actually mostly did pornography comics, but he did these crazy fucking illustrations. I actually have his collected comic books, and all of these pictures were in the Beckley books. I'm gonna find a good one. Like here, you get like the alien looming over the Capitol building.
There's a Damsky there, yeah.
Travis Walton.
Oh yeah,
portrait of Travis Walton.
Nice.
Dude, look at this great Linda Howe portrait. Like this is really like excellent stuff. And Beckley would use all of the. I hope he paid him. Look at this Bud Hopkins picture. You don't have this stuff anymore. I mean, not like I want. How far into this are we? Like 12 minutes. Not like I want like a picture like this of, you know, Jimbo Corbell or whatever you want to call him. But look at that. Look at that Bob Lazar. It's just, it's iconic. It doesn't matter that it's disreputable.
Is that called As Above, So Below?
No, is
that what it's called?
Above Top Secret.
Okay, Above Top Secret. Okay.
So these aren't actually Beckley publications, but I mean, all the images in both of these issues of this these are self-published by Wes Crum, and all the images are just used in all these big floppy Beckley books. This is this is the MJ12 one, republished several times.
The new evidence.
Yeah, well,
great,
you know,
great.
I personally like to keep up on what's going on in the discourse. And so, you know, it has new evidence on the MJ12. So obviously I picked it up.
And the picture of the alien is superb on that.
I look at him. Look,
wow, he's got the forehead on him. But that's a lot of his publishing too. Is like he did just a lot of genius repackaging, and so he would have like constant new editions, or like turn 2 old books into 1 new one, and you know, he was like,
or vice versa, 1 old one into 2 new ones.
right. He was like the Master P of UFO books.
Like any good promoter, I fucking love this picture. He reused this image, and this is not a Wes Crum image. It's by, I think, Carol Rodriguez. He reused this image for I'm sorry. It's like I keep turning it the wrong way because of the mirroring, but this is in a bunch of things. It's so perfect. It's like the perfect amount of outsider, but crafted with love. And
I think I saw you or Gullius. I think Gullius posted like a spiral bound book on Hanger 18 with that image on it today.
that is actually what he posted is like, I think the first edition of this. This is
Okay.
MJ12 and the Riddle of Hanger 18.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this is like maybe, let's see, 1989. But it was first published in 81, which, can you imagine getting that in 81? A spiral bound book about Hanger 18 and MJ12? Like,
yeah, you got the real
you'd
deal.
be fucking blowing your hair back, man.
You'd be spending hours and hours with that, I think.
Here we go, the autopsy report from Leonard Stringfield's files. And
Great.
yeah, and what we've got here is an autopsy on a hand, which looks kind of like it looks like the creature from the Black Lagoon hand, kind of. I don't know. The thing about Tim Beckley, man, is he was there for like the whole, most of the flying saucer craze, going back pretty far. I guess not to the 40s, but definitely through all the, secret documents era. And, he published a lot of junk, but then he was honest about it. He would just say, yeah, sure, some of it I just published to entertain people.
Yeah.
Who cares? I do want to show, I love this one. If you can find this one, it's just called UFO. It's pretty early. It's from 81. It's a little less sensational. It's got a little bit more, quote unquote real photos. But there's cool stuff in here like a profile on Francie Steiger, who was Brad Steiger's wife, and she thought she was a star being. And there's this is going to be hard to see. This is a photo of the UN, and let me read who's in this picture. Gordon Cooper, Jacques Vallée, Claude Poher, J. Allen Hynek, Eric Gary, the Prime Minister of Grenada.
Okay.
Maybe that's UN Secretary General Morton Guys. Look, all these really important people. And then the last guy in here is Lee Spiegel. And there's this young ass bearded guy who looks like Charles Manson or something. And it appears to be Lee Spiegel sitting in this meeting at the UN with like the Prime Minister of Grenada and Jacques Vallée.
Weird.
I'm not saying that anything important happened there, but I am saying, like, it's cool that it's published in this book and that you can just flip to it and be like, I wonder what that conversation was like, man.
Yeah, no doubt. And Beckley really just had he had a ton of influence. I mean, I'm seeing it now with everybody that's sending tributes out to him, and especially he touched a lot of people, a lot of people's lives. And I'm glad that I got to talk to him, that we got to talk to him when we did. I had Tim on a couple of times. And I mean, there was a couple stories that he told, I think the same time, but like the thing is that like those stories and his experiences, that stuff was invaluable, I think. And to just hear it, I mean, that's like the important thing really to me. And part of the like my whole reason to do Conspirinormal has been to talk to some of these older guys that may or may not be here very much longer.
Tim Beckley published hundreds of books from what I can tell. I haven't actually found a complete list. Some of it's better than others, but it was done with like a kind of love, where I think he really enjoyed it. I don't know. It seemed like he really did though, man. It seemed like he really like, I emailed him a couple times. He replied to my emails in like 4 minutes flat, like a stranger.
Wow. Wow.
If you don't give a shit, if you're like, this is just what I do to get by, you don't respond to those emails.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just, I don't know if there's ever going to be another guy like that. You know, sometimes you get one, and that was the guy.
Yeah, I mean, he was a real promoter, and because he had worked, I think, in the music industry too,
In films.
and he had also, like, you know, what was he like? He had like some association with Hustler too.
His name is in the 70s issues for sure. I'm not sure if it's for the articles or what. Hope it's not for the pictorials. But, yeah,
oh,
I mean, he was definitely.
I guess
it is. Well, okay, but like he's just like a classic, like, you know, grimy, like grinding on the street level 70s New York kind of dude. Like, he's, you know, hanging out with the New York Dolls, hanging out with, you know, people making smut magazines. He's publishing UFO pamphlets. I mean, like, he's a product of his time, but he really took it far, man.
And that's what I regret. I regret because I was always like, I want to talk to you about the New York Dolls. Yeah, I wanted to find out what his experiences were with them, and never. I didn't get the chance to do that, and it sucks because that's a whole time period that, like, you know, that I'm very vastly interested in, because both him and I think Peter Robbins, you know, they both have that intersection between that kind of like early punk rock and then the CBGB scene, Max's Kansas City, all that kind of stuff, and then also
and Peter has the art world too, you know.
Right.
It's just like that whole like New York City downtown thing.
Yeah, and then the interest in the UFO world and all that too. You know, it's a very interesting kind of nexus and how it all kind of like comes together in that way. And it really these guys like Timothy Green Beckley and Peter Robbins and I think Brent Raines too, and Alan Greenfield, like, these are like invaluable guys and invaluable sources, you know, for, you know, going back to like the even older stuff for, like, you know, Jim Moseley and Gray Barker and all these people, you know, like they're kind of the link from like the middlemen from us to them in a way. So
I mean, like, one or two more thoughts. I feel like well, I feel like now there's like a move to really like sanitize like the UFO culture again and like make it more respectable. And obviously there's a place for like serious inquiry, and there's even a place for like academic inquiry on this subject, but I don't want to see all the fun get squeezed out of it. Like, I don't want Tim Beckley and Jim Moseley and those kind of guys to only be a memory. And I also hope that there's someone in the family that's going to be able to know what to do with what I assume is a lifetime of archival material. You know, God only knows what this guy has in his home.
I know. Yeah, for real.
You know, and I mean, I assume people will be reaching out to him that, you know, were maybe friends of his, but I, you know, I'm crossing my fingers that stuff doesn't just evaporate as these things, you know, sometimes that happens.
Yeah. Well, I wonder who's going to go through all that material.
Someone lucky, in my opinion.
Yeah, I know, and look through all of that. I know that you know, he had some heart issues that he had a pacemaker put in a few years back, and but it was still pretty sudden, you know, because I mean, honestly, when did we speak to him, Surfiel? It was probably August of last year. I mean, it wasn't that long ago, really.
Someone like him, you know, has just so much life in him that you never expect that to just happen, you know. No matter how he was probably doing health-wise, he just was bursting with energy and life.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, it just seemed like he never stopped.
and
Yeah.
that probably kept him going for longer than he would have, perhaps. You know, that's usually how it goes with people like that. So he had a real passion for it. You know, he may not have had to have kept doing it, but it's just what he did.
I wonder, you know, at the core of it, at the end of the day, like, you know, because he published a pretty wide range of stuff, and he'd be like, yeah, I don't believe, you know, half of this stuff is just, you know, BS, and some of it's made up, and I know that. But I wonder where he landed on some of this stuff at the end of the day, you know, sort of like when the lights go down, and that's the kind of thing that I wonder about with especially with a lot of these older folks who go away. You know, you don't get like a last interview with them, so you got to make sure that you ask them, you know, why you have them. You know, I was thinking about Ann Druffel in the same way, because she passed away a few months ago, and I was curious. You know, I was like, man, I wonder if someone knew that, like, you know, she was going to pass away. You know, and you just sat her down and you got the questions you wanted to ask in, what the answers might be.
Mhm.
Well, I think like Greenfield has given us a lot of insight into, I think a lot of them might really see the trickster element as an important part of it, you know, so that he might have definitely thought there was something to all this, but thought, you know, hey, this is part of it. This is the game that we've been playing for all these years, and weird shit does come out of playing that game too. So it's, I would suspect it's something like that, like Alan Greenfield really talks about. But yeah, the we just hope it doesn't get too sanitary. It's already boring. I mean, we've been joking a lot. I've been joking a lot with Adam and David Metcalf, and like how much this stuff is like different music phases, and like basically like it feels like UFOs are going through its like pop punk phase, you know, where like everyone's on Epitaph Records trying to get a major label deal, and like, but you know, there's always going to be the real shit, and you know, if there's anything to that trickster stuff, then it's going to continue to it'll marginalize itself again. You know, something, this will blow over, and it'll just be back to the hardcore roots again. We'll see.
Well, when I was grabbing stuff today, I mean, I don't have like an insanely huge collection of stuff, you know, and I don't want to like position myself in that way. You know, I don't want to be disingenuous with anybody. I love to just go to weird libraries and find the paranormal occult section, pull books out, and, you know, I post them on the Instagram. But I was trying to find things where, you know, I was thinking like what's being left out of the conversation right now. And like, what was the conversation at different times? You know, like what were people talking about then? Because right now, all I see is, you know, PR campaign, basically, right?
Right.
You know, like a few dozen newspaper articles. None of them are about anything. You know, they're reporting that someone else wrote a newspaper article. And so it's like, well, if you want to move beyond the pop punk of it, you know, the sort of cornier aspect, like what else is there, and like why should you, what, you know, like what can you find out there, without dropping a lot of money, just finding interesting stuff that's nice and beautiful looking, and is also weird as hell.
Right. Well, with this, you know, everything going on now, it's like there's, you know, obviously a lot of misinformation and disinformation and weird stuff, but it's coming from like official sources, whereas we're talking about like Beckley's empire and kind of the seedier publishing, and coming from the bottom, you know, coming from the people, like there was plenty of bullshit too, but it just seemed so much more interesting to sift through that than to sift through what's coming now. It feels like
A lot of bootlicking going on.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of all right, I promise we won't talk about this too much, but there's definitely a lot of like UFO people like trying to make this about them, and it's like, this actually isn't for you. This is for like my mom, who opens the paper and sees like the Tic Tac picture for the first time, and is like, well, you don't say, like, they're looking at, you know, spacemen here. This isn't for you. This isn't for us. This is a PR campaign, you know, that eventually will, you know, as a bunch of other people before me have said, is going to lead to some contracts for some, you know, big companies. And it's going to be way sexier for Raytheon to say, like, we're looking at UFOs than we're bombing children in some other country.
You got it.
You know, it's just, you know, two people scratching each other's backs. And then there's a few people sprinkled in there who I think probably have a genuine, are hoping that something truly weird shakes loose and they get to put their eyes on it, you know? But it's not going to be these, you know, pseudo journalist podcasting folk.
It's not going to be like a popular media. It's going to be coming from big media and government.
I mean, no disrespect, because she's very accomplished, but like, I think, you know, Leslie Keane probably thinks she's maybe going to get to put her eyes on something that the rest of us might not get to see. Right. You know, she's towing a line. Somebody is doing a public relations campaign, you know, and she is a part of the face of that. You know, she's being interviewed on TV. Like, you're writing in the New York Times, like, you know, there's barriers to get there. It's not just because she wrote a book on UFOs, like very many people have. And so, like, what it comes down to is, I think there are some people like her. Maybe they get a taste of the, you know, whatever it is they're trying to get. Maybe it'll even be true what they get to see that the rest of us don't. But for most of the people out there, you're going to get the official story and not much more. And I don't know, the official story they're giving seems really fucking boring. And it seems like they don't know anything. It's
definitely not enough for them to write hundreds of cool books like Beckley published. So.
Yeah, I think he would have given this the big thumbs down.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, whatever. This shit is not for us. This is these news articles, these 60-minute things. Who cares? It's for people that have, you know, never thought about any of this stuff beyond, like, you know, Will Smith movies.
Well, the problem is that a lot of people just don't really care.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people just, they don't give a shit about this. Well,
it's the same way, like, I don't care about somebody else's hobby, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'm not like, oh man, tell me everything about knitting, person who loves knitting. I'm just like, oh, you knit? That's cool. That's a weird little thing.
I think if they came out and said, like, oh, we know it's definitely aliens, you know, maybe that would be a thing. But they're not saying that. And they're just saying we don't know what it is. Which is fine. You know, I'm totally fine with that. But the thing is just like, I just don't think that with everything that has happened in the last year and a half, in the last 4 years, people just don't care. And besides the really hardcore people and the people that want to make TV shows out of this, which has already been done, most people just don't really care about what's going on. And a lot of people don't realize that the Tic Tac video stuff, and that's like 17 years old now.
Yeah. Maybe they can make it political and everybody will care.
Yeah.
Find a way to make it a politically divisive issue.
And we're probably dealing with something. The reason why they're even saying anything about the Tic Tac video to begin with is that it's probably something that is being in the process of being declassified. That is ours.
Yeah, it's very likely. I mean, all of these are likely scenarios. And like, yeah, I don't know. It's going to shake out however it's going to shake out. Like, I'm perplexed by the people that are like up to the minute with this stuff, you know,
well, they want to be validated, and they all even honestly, you know, they say that openly. So So, I mean, I'm not really into this shit to be validated. I'm self-deprecating enough about it, and I don't see how you get into this to like expect other people to like it. I mean, we like all kinds of extreme music and things like that. That like you don't get into it thinking that it's going to be validated one day, or the majority of people are going to like it, or it's just a different attitude. I don't know.
Yeah, and disclosure, the whole disclosure thing, not to beat this point to death, but the whole disclosure thing is just millennial thinking. It's millennial thinking transposed to the UFO realm. That's all it is. It's the same thing as what I recognize and what I saw in the prophecy, in the Christian prophecy evangelical community. It's always coming, but it never quite gets there. It's always the same. And it's the people think that like if disclosure comes, maybe it's not going to be that big of a deal. I don't know.
Well, it's funny because it's like all these people that are predicting disclosure for so long are now like scrambling to keep up with it. I guess this is some kind of act, they're disclosing that like this is a valid concern to some people who have power. You have like Marco Rubio. I mean, I keep fucking interviewing Harry Reid. Like the guy's retired. He's out of the business. It's like, I don't know. Maybe like Bigelow takes his calls, but like, who fucking cares?
Yeah.
But it's like, and then you have like your Bryce Sables or somebody who are, now have to like integrate this into like, well, in his case, he's just always proposed possible scenarios, but now he has to integrate this new information. And, I mean, Obama, like the guy that lots of people like still came on TV and was like, oh yeah, I've seen them, but I don't know what they are. Like, the way that these disclosure people have been positioning something like that for so long, like that would be the bombshell. And just like,
yeah,
I don't think my parents even noticed.
Crickets.
Until, I got to go back to the paranormal layman himself, Mr. Banal. He said on your very show, he said, show me the fucking alien or shut up.
Right.
And I think he's so very right. God bless him. So,
well, let's switch it up, and everyone knows we're a bunch of anti-disclosure curmudgeons, but let's get to some of this people's media that you collect, Chris. And how did you first get into like really kind of collecting some of this stuff?
Oh, I have a problem, man. I've been a collector for life. Baseball cards.
It's always good to have some sort of problem. Okay.
Yeah.
So started with baseball cards.
Yeah, I believe so. I mean, that I buy a lot of records and I have a big record collection that, that's like a fun hobby, but like often it extends to ephemera, so like zines and posters and, little knickknacks of bands and stuff like that. I'm trying to see if I have anything here, pins. But so I started grabbing like UFO related stuff too. I mean, I was like reading conspiracy blogs and stuff in the mid 2000s, and then I stopped for a while because I was like, man, some of this shit is just too dark. And then I came back to it maybe like 2014, 2015, and it's about that time I was like, like some of this stuff, like I specifically thinking of the Beckley books, actually, I was like, these things are not going to be around forever. Like these are physical media, they're already going away, and like people should be saving them because they're like these beautiful specific artifacts. And again, like I'm sure there's people listening that have tons of cool stuff. I'm not like the keeper of cool stuff. Like if anything, I want to emphasize, like with very little money and just with a little bit of time on your hands, like you can find all kinds of cool UFO related stuff, and it's gonna let you know more about like what the conversation was when that piece of media was made, and maybe take you away from the boring mundane current discourse. But
Yeah, and I mean, starting with the pulp mags and even further back, I mean it really is a heavily mediated subject. I mean, UFOs have really been about magazines and books and photographs, and it's very mediated.
one thing that I think is like almost a little sad is like you get like these
Well,
great
cool.
illustrated. Let me take this out of the bag so that there's less glare. You get these great sort of illustrated things, and a lot of these they had to be creative and do drawings and stuff. And I feel like a lot of people in like the music world, and that like I was around like hardcore and punk for a lot of my life, and they still really fetishize, like sort of the look of something like this, which is just a bunch of pasted up articles,
cut and paste, and illustration too, like you're saying, like because these are things that aren't may not be real to most people, or there's not a lot of photographs of. When you're making visual representations, you got to rely on the illustrations. Yeah.
So that's an illustration of Bob Renaud's, I think that's how you say his name, Bob Renaud's scout craft that he was taking aboard. Bob Renaud's a pretty run-of-the-mill contactee guy. Although he did used to talk to, there might be a picture of him with his radio setup in this issue. He used to talk to the UFOs on a ham radio setup, which we can speculate it was probably, some kind of Russian spies or something. And I believe, let's see, this is, so in the Amalgamated Flying Saucer Clubs of America magazine, they ran a number of volumes on Bob Renaud's story, and this is part 33 of his contactee story. It's not very exciting, although maybe something like the Saucer Life could make it digestible. But I mean, it looks great, man, and like I think it's one of the things that's lacking in the current UFO scene. It's like you get all these ugly,
really bad
generated graphics, and like I don't care for that at all. One thing that I grabbed, this is a book called The World of UFOs by Daniel Cohen. And I've talked about this before with people, but he wrote a couple of sort of paranormal and UFO themed books, and they were for like young adults. And this I checked out of the library when I was like 12 or 13, and I wrote a report on UFOs.
Awesome.
Now you may be like, yeah, whatever, that's cool. So first of all, again, just great fucking graphics. That I couldn't remember the name of the book for like almost 30 years. Is that right? Let's say 25 years. And I just remembered it had this big yellow UFO on it. And I finally found it. When I saw it, I knew it was this book. And I actually found the book report recently, which is
you've got to post that up.
It's very embarrassing. I should not have gotten an A on it. The most interesting part of it was, a couple. You know what? I don't want to. This book is awesome. If you want a book that's a great primer on the UFO scene before 1980, basically before MJ12 and that whole saga, this book is great. You can probably read it in a night or two if you're a fast reader, maybe an afternoon. It's not just flying saucers in here. They've got the bibliography has like 5 or 6 John Keel books in it. Like for kids, you don't get that anymore, man. Now I don't know. Now you would just get like, I don't know. I'm not even gonna speculate. They reference Valet in here. They reference Charles Fort. Like, that's really impressive. And it's maybe 150 pages. You get this book for like $5 used on Amazon or eBay. It's really not expensive. My copy has an old library card in it. That's really where the mania started. Was reading that book when I was a kid.
Yeah, I think we all have those kind of those.
Do you remember what yours was? Did you have like a thing?
I mean, probably more than anything, the Mysteries of the Unknown Time Life series. My parents got we got like 4 of them, I think, before they stopped the little subscription. But the UFO Phenomenon one, I still have it, and it's got like a piece of the cover that was chewed off by like a dog we had at one point. But I still have it. I think that had some real iconic images that really got burned into my mind. Anyone who's friends with me on Facebook knows my profile picture is like me drawing a saucer with a beam coming down with chalk in my driveway. And that's probably a direct inspiration from like one of the images from that.
So for me, I mean, I had the Time Life books and stuff I probably would have checked out from the library. There was like, I mean, in Chattanooga at one of the library branch that we used to go to all the time, you know, he's like in the zeros, whatever of the Dewey Decimal System, you had the UFO books. And I would go and I would just check out these weird books, just like weird stuff, ancient mysteries, all tied in with UFOs, you know, chariots of the gods and all this type of stuff. And there was another book that I can remember checking out from my high school library, very early high school, that was all about ghosts, and it having like all the weird ghost photography and all that. So like really for me, the first kind of stuff that I really got into was probably the ghost stuff for me. It was less the UFOs. That maybe came a little bit later, but like just the weird books in the library, the weird books in the high school library, just any books that like I could get my hands on, I would just devour all this weird shit, you know.
I remember checking out a ghost book in maybe like 2nd grade, and it had like the ghost photography in it, and I brought it home, and I was too scared to look at it. My parents were like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, "What?" And I think I might have even had to like, you know, you had to like read the book and write a paragraph about it. And I was too scared to read the book.
Yeah, it was all kind of crazy pictures, you know, the pictures of Mary Todd Lincoln with Abraham Lincoln, all the old spiritualist photography and all that weird kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which is just creepy anyway, even though it's completely totally fake, but you know.
Yeah, but when you're like 8, you're just like, I don't know, this looks pretty real to me.
Yeah.
And here's a map of Atlantis, and here's what that alien looked like, an illustration, and
Yeah, there was another book that I had growing up that was later middle school, high school, that was like called UFOs, the Continuing Enigma. And there was stuff in there like from like Brad Steiger, and you know, I need to look at it again, all about alien abductions and all that kind of stuff, you know.
Here's a Steiger book actually published by Beckley, and Beckley published a lot of Brad Steiger stuff. Metcalf's like on a real Brad Steiger kick recently. I don't know if you guys know that. But...
Oh, we know. Yeah.
But one of the cool things that I actually got recently, man, is this, and we talked about this in one of the Zoom chat nights, but
the tape collection.
It's a double tape set with Francie Steiger reading on it. It comes with this booklet from Valley of the Sun, which is like this new age sort of publishing arm, and they published a lot of new age music. The music is by Steve Halpern, who is like a super prolific new age guy, which we talked about him in the last chat because he did this LP with Ingo Swann. That's like bad disco music. That's but it's awesome. Weird because Halpern. So this is another thing that me and Metcalf have both been really like revving each other up about. And you can get, there's so many Steve Halpern LPs, and I've been picking them up for like, I don't know, $5 or $6 a piece, which is rare for any like used LPs at this point. You know, they all look like this. Halpern was, so he's sort of like, he started out as a jazz guy in New York, and he he was hanging. I think he was in like the Coltrane, Cannonball Adderley, like that circle. You know, kind of like on the fringes of that. Piano guy, but I think he played some other instruments, maybe trumpet or something like that. Somehow he ended up at the Esalen Institute as like the lobby piano player, which is so fucking weird. Like, you know, like I picture like that weird, like basically fake Esalen Institute and Beyond the Black Rainbow, and just seeing like this weird dude draped in like, you know, mandala all over print, you know, silk clothing, like playing piano in the lobby there. So Halpern's out on the West Coast and he goes to the Redwoods and he has like a contact experience. He said he was contacted by these beings. He channeled a bunch of them and they told him the new way of playing music. And the new way of playing music, I mean, the Steve Halpern musical style. And let me see, I think I have his. Man, all these records look the same. This is Spectrum Suite, which is sort of like the quintessential Halpern record. It's like very impressionistic. It's very like, it's almost like a parody of like what you think of when you think of new age music, but it's very minimal too. And he's got like dozens and dozens of releases. But you know, somewhere along the way he linked up with the Steigers and he made this weird instructional tape for activating the star person. An album of spiritual exploration through meditation and directed hypnosis. I listened to it. I mean, it's him playing the background music and them telling you to focus on your inner star seed, and you know, it's about what you expect, but it's just so fucking bizarre and like trippy. And I think the best thing is there's a little printed warning on the label: hypnosis, do not use in a moving automobile.
Nice.
So, you know,
Great.
friends don't let friends do starseed hypnosis in the car.
Bad idea.
Yeah, here's another. This is just I don't even have anything to say about this, but it's a LP, abridged LP of Flying Saucers Serious Business, and it's signed by Frank Edwards.
Cool.
And he
Serious
narrates
business.
Yeah. So I read in the New York Times that flying saucers had never been taken seriously before like last week, but according to this, and this is actually dated Frank Edwards 1967, they were already serious business folks, so don't fucking believe the hype. All right.
So there were also like a lot of there was a recording industry, no matter how primitive, around flying saucers too.
Tons of stuff. Well, because like we didn't have to be this person, like, you know, we didn't always have podcasts, and you know, back in the day we used to have to find our stuff on physical media. Here's another one. This is clips from Long John Neville's show.
I've got that too.
Mm-hmm.
I think we talked. Do you have here's another one, the Occult Explosion. I know I showed you this, right?
Yeah, I do not have that. That's pretty cool.
This is cool because it's sort of the full spectral dominance of weirdness, and it has has these like nice bound pages in the gatefold, and it has a 10-minute speech by Stan Friedman. It has Anton LaVey. Trying to find who else we have here. Oh, Black Widow, the band, actually has a couple of songs on here. You know,
when did that come out?
This is 1973.
Cool.
So you've got a very young Stanton Friedman in there, just right next to Anton LaVey and Alan Watts. Oh, and there's Uri Geller in here, I think, as well. Maybe this is too early for him. Even if it is, I've got this shitty Uri Geller LP that's actually worse than the Halpern and Go Swan record. But Uri walking out of like that galaxy portal thing on the cover makes it worth it to me.
Does he tell you how to bend spoons?
No, no, these are literally songs with lyrics by Yuri. The first one is "Come On and Love." It's not a cover of Kiss's "Come On and Love Me."
Amazing.
Hear the voice, the soft enchanted voice. It turns the forest green. It makes the flowers dream. It's what they call imperfect rhyme. There's another song, Beyond Imagination, Velvet Space, This Girl of Mine, The Lonely Man. Lyrics by Uri Geller.
Man, who knew? Who knew that the man was also a true songwriter?
So I mean, just like we see UFOs like kind of coexisting in this soup of conspiracy and new age spirituality and weirdness throughout, the times that we remember coming up in, it always kind of could cross over and coexist in these different worlds as well as existing independently.
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty interesting that's all on one thing.
I got to show this 45 while we're doing records. This is a band called the Darvisets, and the record's called Do the Crop Circle.
Oh yeah. And
this is like one of my favorite punk records of the 90s. It sounds like it's from the 70s. It sounds like Germs and the Bags, the Avengers, and all that kind of LA stuff from the 70s. And all the songs are flying saucer themed. And I mean, it's very steeped in the 90s. I helped put out a record for them later, and we actually used art from a Beckley book in the layout. So that kind of gives you an idea. It's like they got a song called Contactee, The Martian Waltz, another Roswell, Do the Crop Circle. There's like a song at the end where he yells out Bill Cooper was right. Like it's super fun, man. And like it's kind of hard to find, but it is on YouTube, and I uploaded just a straight vinyl rip of it. So if you search for the Darvisets Do the Crop Circle, you'll find the real UFO punk, not that other shit that we already talked about.
There you go.
And it's legitimately good punk too. This is like, it's not just cool because it's UFO. It's definitely the best music out of all the ones I just showed. All right. What else do we have here? I love this book, man. This is like not a good book, but it's really cool. And nobody really cares about it, but it's called The October Scenario. And I just think this is like so outside the kind of books that you get talked about. And the premise of the book is that real space aliens came to Earth in 1973, peaking in October of that year, and then they split. And that's it. They were here, they're gone, and that's it. And it's just a weird little thought exercise, man.
It's almost biblical, like people who don't think that God talks to people anymore,
Yeah. It's written by Captain Kevin D. Randall. I'm not sure what
he's a captain.
Yeah, what part of the armed forces he was in, but they cover the Pascagoula guys in here and a few other things, and he maps out actually a few sort of sub scenarios of the October scenario. But what it's basically about is the 1973 wave. He proposes that like some of the earlier sightings were like scouts, and then 1973 was sort of like the apex of it, and then that's it.
Then they saw what they were dealing with, and they just left.
Well, man,
is he got anything to do with the Yom Kippur War? Because he talks about October 1973.
I don't think it mentions that in here. No,
because that's a big part of Stephen Greer's stuff. Is that like he got contacted by the aliens in 1973 during the Yom Kippur War?
Do you know what month that war happened?
October 1973.
Adam is definitely a history buff.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh,
October
shit.
1973.
Yeah, October.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dude, well that's the October scenario. I don't know. I think it's cool to look around and find things like this, stuff that gets cut out of the conversation, not for being necessary. I mean, look, it's all disreputable, you know, like it's UFOs. It's mostly speculative.
But there might be a puzzle piece in there, you know?
Yeah, or it just might get you thinking about something differently, and it might get you thinking about something in a way that the conversation is not, you know, even looking at right now.
Yeah, these all kind of represent, like, you know, the classic reality tunnels of Robert Anton Wilson, and kind of like, you know, books in general and fiction like are kind of portals to another world, but especially like these UFO books. I mean, they can really take you somewhere. You know, they're almost like they almost become like magical paraphernalia almost.
I mean, I think, you know, like how you engage with something like inherently has to be defined by, like, you know, how you're already engaging with it. And so, like, if all you're doing is listening to, like, you know, 17 podcasts where they're just breaking down like every frame of the Tic Tac video, like, then that's all you're gonna really like get out of it. But I don't know, man. Like, don't you want to read unusual personal experiences?
Yeah.
What's the subtitle in there?
So this is the Roper survey. This is the
Okay.
infamous Roper survey. This was $1 at a paranormal library in Virginia Beach at the Casey Center. They were getting rid of it, and this has, you know, it has the findings of the Roper survey in it, and it's useless. Well, first of all, as I keep saying again and again, I love this cover. Very evocative. It's just all these regular, mundane people staring off into the distance. And I kind of think Unusual Personal Experiences was like them trying to rebrand abduction the way they're trying to do UAP with UFO now. But I do like that they put personal in there, because everybody always goes on, you know, this is a very personal experience. Contact is a personal experience. Experiencers. It's a nice little between the lines thing, but you get, I mean, this gives you an idea of the time, man, in like kind of a very straightforward way. You have Bob Bigelow, you have Bud Hopkins, you have David Jacobs, and all right, like, it's definitely an interesting read. I mean, for what it is, for a bunch of statistics, it gives you a real like window into this time, into those the abduction panic, as I would call it. Which for me, it gets me thinking, like, well, what was that? You know, like what was going on? Like, whatever you want to, you know, and I'm not trying to pitch one theory over the other, but I think it's just interesting to like really consider, like, in hindsight, like what the fuck happened in the 80s that it got to like almost a fever pitch of like people afraid of being abducted and dissected by spacemen.
I was personally terrified as a child.
Scared. So fucking scared.
I thought any
here.
night it was gonna happen. You know,
Same here.
I saw the cover of Communion in the library.
There he is. I've got him
watching
protecting
signings.
me right now.
Yeah. Well, okay, so I mean, it's just I think it's just a number of things. I mean, I think it's just like, you're right. It did reach this like weird kind of fever pitch.
It's
and
like the Satanic Panic, right?
Right.
Like it got to that level.
Right. Yeah. And I think that the Satanic Panic material and the alien abduction material is all happening at the same time. So, like, Bud Hopkins writes Intruders in like a what, 1987 maybe
84.
Missing
Wait, oh,
Time,
Intruders is 87, Missing Time's 84.
Missing Time is 84. Yeah, so I was thinking it was 82, but yeah, so it's all around the same time. And then also 87, 88 is Strieber's Communion. So it's all happening. And I think that it almost becomes like meshed together in a lot of people's minds. And especially with like, this is also the same time as the rise of the talk show on TV and on media. And both subjects are being talked about. We're talking about alien abduction. We're talking about satanic panic stuff. The Satanists are coming to get you. The aliens are coming to get you. And then the cattle mutilation stuff was blamed on either aliens or Satanists. So there's an interesting parallel there. I think the Intruders movie was like 1991.
It's
And
92 because
Yeah, okay.
it's right before Fire in the Sky.
Right.
Which both were written by Tracy Torme.
And that movie in and of itself has got some really terrifying imagery in it. So
you know that I love it. I've told you before. It's very like that is the scariest thing they've ever showed on primetime TV.
Oh yeah. It's frightening, and it's very, very effective. But that's also that's like the time period of right as the Satanic Panic is really just like has really taken off and just got to its pure ridiculousness. So I really think that there's like that you got like it's interesting how they match each other. Somebody I think could do a whole PhD thesis on that. For real.
I think they could, but I think I wouldn't be happy with the conclusion because I'm always a little bit. I'm never totally on board with people blaming mass delusion for every goddamn thing that happens. Now, I'm not saying it was spacemen, and I'm not trying to be like, well, it was actually fairies, and they came here, through another dimensional portal. I don't know if it was any of those things. But I don't know if it's mass delusion. Like Metcalf said to me, well, QAnon is a mass delusion, right? Like we know what a mass delusion looks like. And like it doesn't really look like the abduction panic. I don't think. It's not quite the same.
Yeah, it's pretty dark, but I think what both of them have in common is they gave real elaborate stories for a lot of people to channel their trauma into their real experiences.
I think that's a possibility.
That's things are probably a lot more mundane, but putting it in those kind of big epic stories for people really seem to help people. So, but that's just one part of it. I mean, I think that there probably is real experiences too. So who knows?
It's an interesting thing to consider, man.
But yeah, when did it kind of like turn down? That's what I'm like, we know when it really started, but what kind of happened? How did it seems like it just out of nowhere really, maybe that was just the media attention. Yeah.
I think that probably the late 90s, I think is really when it started to kind of just like start to kind of go away, because it really kind of reaches its fever pitch probably around about the mid 90s. Yeah. There was like this special that was on one of the major networks. I don't remember which one, but I remember seeing it at about 96, because like 93 is when the X-Files starts. Sightings starts around the same time. Maybe that was like 92, a little bit earlier. So that was like kind of your big paranormal TV show of the time, which that was ghosts and alien abductions and UFOs.
Yeah, those were my favorites.
Bigfoot, everything, whatever. And so there was this TV special that I remember seeing that was like all about alien abduction. And I could have and there was a book that came out about like a meeting where people talked about their being abducted. And around about 96, 97, 98, it kind of started going away.
Because Y2K was coming.
Yeah. So that's kind of what I remember as being kind of like the high point of the whole like, you know, the grays and the abduction phenomenon.
Well, and that coincided with kind of the drop off in the like right wing extremism and a lot of that conspiracy stuff too, the militia movement, like it all kind of
right. There's just you deal with. I mean, it's like the age of paranoia, you know, and of course everything that like Go Rightly has written about and like the alien bases and all that kind of stuff, how that gets mixed in. This stuff gets really, really complicated.
Well, and that's interesting, you know, because like this is the mythologies of our time, and like people like us are into these source texts and you know, like going back and like where did these like memes initially come from, and what worlds do they mix in, and how does something like that eventually get to being a part of something like QAnon or something today. It's, you know, we're kind of tracing these genealogies.
It is kind of becoming that sort of thing. And I mean, you know, not to make it like a QAnon conversation, but QAnon is like the ultimate example of like what's old is new again. And I think, you know, both with the satanic panic and the sort of abduction stuff, it just hit it hit a point where it's like it's not a story anymore. You know, like we've heard, you know, they take you on board, and it's like they're little doctors, and they, you know, make incisions and they put in, you know, and eventually it's just like, you know, Oprah doesn't want to do another alien abduction show. It's not bringing in the ratings anymore, and people are just tired of hearing about it. They're tired of the X-Files. They're interested in something else, you know. So it goes away for a while. And then, you know, like in the case of the satanic panic, like it's just come back in like a new, even weirder form. You know, twisted into the style of the times, which is like weird, you know, Facebook echo chamber paranoia. So, you know, if QAnon starts saying that the aliens are coming down and abducting people in their sleep, you heard it here first that it was coming on Conspirinormal.
Yeah, and also though too, like they've incorporated a lot of the deep underground military base stuff.
But that tracks. I mean, that makes sense. And you know, I try to keep it all as far away from me as possible. These cute people, but
right.
But I mean, like, why wouldn't you, right? And like, how, like, because the whole thing is just like all this like underground this and underground that and vats of this and vats of that. I mean, it's the whole, you know, recycled narrative.
Yeah. Which something I think is really interesting about all this media is that you know, this initial old media is like the self-generating nature of a lot of this stuff. So because so much comes from something like hypnosis or things can't be verified, those things that can't be verified are then like used as sources for other things. And like once it's gone through like 2 or 3 sources, you know, this is just like part of this kind of collective knowledge now. And you know, it's just so weird how this stuff starts and just like self-generates. And you know, a book with no sources gets cited, and then it becomes like this like web of like how this stuff spreads in these old books. You know, you're like, oh well, so and so, you know, in this book about the dumb said this, so, you know, and this witness, you know, this guy talked to a guy who talked to a guy who talked to a guy, and then it becomes real.
Yeah, I mean, all of these sort of things. I mean, it's like you can't verify it, so you can't like. I mean, technically, you can't disprove it. You know, even though your common sense tells you, like, you know, well, you're telling me not. You know, I can't verify that like this guy was a super soldier on Mars, or that this guy got, you know, sent in the Montauk chair back in time to take Christ's blood. You know, I have absolutely no proof that he didn't do that. It's just I have every, you know, bone in my body and instinct telling me that like this fucking guy never did that. So that's an extreme example. But if you're just talking about like, you know, so and so major saw a light in the sky and wrote it up, and the document got passed around, and this is the document, but all the, you know, names are blacked out. It's like, I guess it looks like a, redacted document. Like, I can cite that, and then it just gets sort of like, backdoored into the narrative. But there's sort of like, there's not a better way, because it is all like basically unverified and speculative.
Well, that's a good segue into you've had an interest in the Montauk mythos, and
As have I.
yeah, can you kind of give a background to where that started media wise?
They call it the internet, boys. It's going to be big one day, and that's where I heard about it. I'm really not kidding. I read a Montauk book last night that was not by Preston Nichols or Al Bielek. It's sitting here somewhere, man. Yeah, this one, the Montauk Files, and I wanted to read one that didn't have like any of those guys' names on it. And it definitely cites them, so it's not like it's that special. But it does have a good amount of pictures from inside the base in the 90s.
Cool.
So it was already abandoned by then. But I mean, the Montauk thing, it sounds like the plot to a movie the first time you hear about it. You're like, are you kidding me with this shit?
That's because it is the plot to
the plot to a very popular television show.
Well, something interesting about it is it's really like, it seems like what fuels it is that urban exploration stuff, and it reminds me a lot of like the show we had about Snakeland, or these other abandoned places that like create these whole mythologies around them. And like, could that mythos have really come to be without this like weird abandoned installation?
I think so. One thing, you can actually go there now. Like, it's not totally closed off. You can't walk right up to the dish, or at least legally you can't, but you can. But the park is open. Like, you can get within 100 feet of the dish, and most of the buildings, you can walk right up to the front of the building. It's just boarded up. There's a map there that tells you where, what all the buildings were. Like, it's taken care of by the state park authority, or whatever you call that. And it seems to me really like there's two different like moving pieces here. There's a small town where there was a military base, where it seems like maybe even after there shouldn't have been anything going on there, maybe there was some stuff going on. And some people have gone there. They've broken into some of these boarded up buildings. And like, one thing they found was the acid house building, right? It's normal, looks like housing for soldiers that would have been there. But like, one room has like all these crazy psychedelic swirls, and one room has this like really jarring black and white pattern. And it's been hypothesized that, people were dosed with, mind control drugs and then thrown in there, and, God knows what was done to them. And then it seems like there's local folklore from the town that maybe there were, teen runaways and stuff were being taken there and experimented on in the 70s and 80s. It could be anything, it could be something just as simple as like, military people engage in illicit activities all the time. Like, they could have been running some kind of a prostitution ring out of there. I don't know. They could have been experimenting with mind control drugs and trying to, fracture the psyche and create super soldiers. Although I don't know why you'd need runaways to do that. I know that I'm positive that they explain it. Preston Nichols would explain it to me if he was here right now. But then the second level, so there's this spooky little town with a spooky army base, and like something weird was going on there. Nobody really knows what. Then you got these guys like Al Bielek, Preston Nichols, Stuart Swerdlow, which are all kind of like three separate things. Preston Nichols just seems like he's a fucking maniac, mad scientist guy. He claims to have, 200 million IQ and has all these schematics of like, mind control stuff and
Also
things like that.
engaged in some very questionable
Yes.
activities.
With Duncan Cameron as well.
Yeah.
The both of
Yeah.
them. Yeah, because I would say it's in the realm of possibility that Duncan Cameron and Preston Nichols may have gotten caught up in some kind of awful things that happened to them. Maybe even they were experimented on. I don't know. You can watch like a 2-hour walkthrough of Montauk in 1993 that was filmed for Japanese TV, and Preston will point to all the things that just look like regular, resistors and generator boxes inside the abandoned buildings, and he'll be like, well, this is the mind control capacitor that, helped to create things out of thoughts into thin. And, it's like, I guess, dude, it just looks like a cable box to me. That's one thing. Stuart Swerdlow just seems like a guy that is just it's straight up just, I'm a Martian super soldier kind of guy. Nothing. There's nothing there. He's just, I think something.
He seems like an add-on.
Yeah, he can't. He's a later member of the band, so to speak.
Yeah.
Now Al Bielek,
and he claims to be like the grandson or something of the first president of the Soviet Union.
I mean, he literally claims they sent him back in time to take Jesus's blood.
To
clone Jesus.
Yeah, that's believable.
Well, hey, man,
I can,
MK Ultra.
They also, who was the guy? The lawyer in New Mexico that Baizano or whatever that claimed that he was carrying he went back to the Gettysburg Address.
Yeah.
That's another classic one.
Al Bielek is the third sort of the big three of this Montauk stuff. And the weird thing about Al Bielek is he was around conspiracy stuff before Montauk. People don't really realize that, but he was a friend and associate of Ivan Sanderson. This is a magazine, a Fortean journal, I guess you could say, called Pursuit. And, they have stuff in here like there's a UFO article, there's an article about Tesla, there's an article about the Loch Ness Monster. This is from 1971. Listed in the back here are all the different people. And, you have like Ivan Sanderson is the second vice president of the Society for the Investigation of the Unexplained. And then way down the list here, you have Al Bielek on one of the standing committees, the head of the Standing Committee on Brain Control.
Okay, interesting.
And before that, he's mentioned, I want to say in one of Valet's Forbidden Science books as being like just a common cryptozoology guy, just a guy that was sort of like riding around with Ivan Sanderson. So at some point, I think Al Bielek gets wind of this like little, he basically takes the Philadelphia experiment thing, right? The Carlos Allende, the whole narrative there, and is just like, oh yeah, I was one of the soldiers. I jumped off the boat and fell through time, and here I am, and I forgot until yesterday, and I'm telling you. And then he just somewhere in there, he's just like weaves Montauk into the story, and then you get the Philadelphia experiment and other UFO conspiracies by Brad Steiger with Alfred Bielek and Sherry Hansen-Steiger. And, they tie in some Wilhelm Reich and, I don't know.
Were they using orgone energy to generate the force field?
So this book explained to me that because I'm sort of an orgone energy novice, there's negative and positive orgone energy. And they were using the negative... Fuck, I can't remember, man. They're using the negative orgone energy to power something, something evil and nefarious.
That book is the Montauk Files.
Yeah, it's a quick. They got it all. Michael Aquino's in here too, and
greatest hits.
Yeah, you gotta give the people what they want.
How is Aquino associated with the Montauk / Philadelphia experiments?
Basically, this is the part where I think they're trying to show some kind of like provenance for like bad things happening to children on military bases, and so they basically cite the Aquino, whatever he was,
the Presidio stuff.
Yes, they're basically like, this might have happened too. So they probably were abusing children to turn them into time traveling super soldiers in like a beach town in Long Island. I mean, having been there, you do get a weird feeling when you're there. But like, I don't know if it's a weird feeling because I'm like, wow, that's really the radar dish from the pictures that I've been looking at, in like grainy little pictures on the internet.
Well, I'm glad that you brought that up because there's a lot of weird stuff about Long Island. I haven't been there other than like Queens, but there's the whole thing with it came up in the Sons of Sam documentary, Roy Radin, and all the stuff the weird stuff that was going on in the Hamptons. Keel writes about Long Island pretty extensively in Mothman Prophecies.
Yeah, quite a bit.
And how weird the stuff that was going on there. I believe that the Roy Radin material was the basis for Eyes Wide Shut. Okay, now I don't know how much that was actually associated with Berkowitz and the Son of Sam and all that, but I think that there was definitely some knowledge that Kubrick knew about some of the weird, wild parties that were going on in the Hamptons. But there's a lot of weirdness associated with Long Island that just does not get talked about.
I mean, for one thing, I'm not, we're having a good time here. We're
Amityville. Let me add that too. I mean, that's weird too.
It is weird, but that's Now, you want to talk about like the trickster paradigm, and I mean, there you have it, right?
Yeah.
It feels like there's probably some weird shit that went down in Montauk, and it feels like it had something to do with the military base there, and it feels like if I was a weird guy, either in the military or some military adjacent thing, and I wanted to experiment on people in the 70s, a really easy way to do that would be to pick up street kids in New York City and take them out to literally the end of New York, as far out as New York goes into the Atlantic Ocean, essentially.
Yeah.
And do whatever terrible things I was going to do. And some of that may have had to do, may have been ultra adjacent, or some later speculated descendant of the ultra line of experimentation, or it really could have just been like something as simple as like horrible people sex trafficking. I don't know. But there is a weird energy on Long Island. I agree. Everybody I've ever met from there is insane. And as I was showing before, it produced the greatest American rock band ever.
Yes, that's true.
A band that sang about weird things quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, I do not discount the mind control, that possibility. And I always wondered that about Preston Nichols and Al Bielek, whether that they were led to believe that they actually experienced these things. I'm less so about Al Bielek now. I think that he maybe just was, from what you've just said, maybe he was just hopping on the bandwagon.
This guy was around for a long time. I just think he found a good grift. He was looking for a good one his whole life. He found it, and he was like, nobody can fact check me. Nobody remembers that I was the...
Well,
what is it? Brain control expert.
What was interesting was that I remember, and I can remember quite distinctly, hearing Al Bielek, I didn't even know who it was at the time on Art Bell. I mean, I would just like, we'd stay up past midnight and just turn that shit on and just listen to it, right? And I was a big fan of the Philadelphia Experiment movie from the 80s. Like when I was a kid, I watched that like so many times. It's just ridiculous. And I was just like, this is the movie. Everything he's saying, like
It's just straight up the plot to the movie.
Yeah, we went back to 1983, and like this is like 1998 or 99 that I'm hearing this, and I'm like, this is the movie. Like this is just, you know, it's not, and people are just buying it, you know.
Well, and at some point they started
never seen it ad infinitum on HBO like I had when I was 7.
Which is it was on cable so much.
Right.
It was on so much. And what also once they started weaving in the other like dumbs kind of stuff to that Montauk narrative and just being like, oh, and there were aliens there, and there were drinking our blood, this and that and the other thing. It's just, I mean, he's playing to the crowd at that point, I mean, I also think sometimes, and especially because of things like the Montauk mythos, that the mind control sort of wasn't as sophisticated as like maybe we think, and it wasn't like this super sophisticated. It's like it's always like somebody like punching buttons into a keypad and like zapping someone's brain, and like I think they might have just dosed them with LSD and like left them in the dark,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. Anyway, that's my take on the Montauk project. There's my experimented time.
Well, it has become such a, I think the only reason that the Philadelphia Experiment got put into the whole thing was Al Bielek.
Yeah,
because
I agree.
I think that what his act of genius, I guess, was just associating Montauk and what was going on there with what happened in 1983 and 1943 met for a moment or whatever. And I think that that's the only reason that even gets associated. And the Philadelphia Experiment is just really, I think, just based off a huge misunderstanding.
I see no reason to assume anything otherwise.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I certainly think, look, man, if the military got the ship to disappear and then it came back and there were some people fused to the hull, they just would have been like, all right, well, we got to figure out how to do it without the guys getting fused to the, like, they wouldn't have just been like, oh no, like, we're not going to touch this again, man. Like,
if they can, they will.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I guess the problem is I don't even think that many people really like buy into this stuff anymore, but this was like at a height, like you said, during the Art Bell era. And those people also buy into the whole, like everything, the time traveling chair and the everything.
Well, like I was asking Aaron Golias, like when we were talking about some of these really disreputable authors from back in the day, can these like weird experiencers, I guess you'd call them, or like certain types of targeted individuals with really elaborate stories, can these like type of people really become these popular kind of spokespeople like they used to, or is that kind of just over with?
Well, so you're thinking of like an Adamski kind of guy? Is that what you mean?
Or like the guys surrounding Montauk, or like a James Shelby Downard, or like a, whoever, like a.
Well, I'll tell you, it may be over in some circles, but I think that in others it is not. And have we seen, like in the Q crowd though, have we seen people come forward like they did during the Satanic Panic and say like, yeah, I was in one of these dumbs and this is happened? Yeah, maybe not yet, but it probably will happen.
It has to happen, right?
If it's going
to continue.
But people's identities are so documented now. and people have been so public most of their lives, with young people that like,
yeah, but think about somebody like Corey Good. I mean, Corey Good
but still
is
that's
a perfect example.
but he's still old enough that that's like, like he could have a mysterious past. Whereas like if you grow up, on MySpace and Facebook now, like you can't really like just make up this elaborate hoax past or like, I just don't know if it's gonna happen anymore.
I would say I hope you're right, but I would also say we've clearly seen that people will believe some ridiculous shit.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be really easy to say like, oh yeah, my Facebook photos from 2009, those are actually CGI, staged on a green screen. That's not my real father because I was bred in a reptilian endocrine lab, till the age of 16, and then I escaped. Like, sounds pretty fucking wild to us, but if you're already buying the lie, I mean, they're like wrestling fans or something, right? They like, well, not exactly, because wrestling fans know it's fake. So I don't know, man. But you play to your crowd. You feed them that story, and they go, oh well, yeah, it makes sense. I mean, obviously, that's what Hillary would do. She would Photoshop the children into fake MySpace profile or Facebook profiles, and
But for something as big as QAnon, like I feel like a victim would have come out by now, a high-profile victim, with a maybe they.
You need to stop because you are going to manifest that victim into really existing, and then we're not going to hear the end of it.
That's it. Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I think in answer to Sergio's question, I would say like not yet, but I could really see that happening.
Yeah, they're being trained in Russia right now.
I think that's probably going to be one of the next things. But I'll tell you, even 10 years ago, and this was literally 10 years ago when I went to the Future Congress, I met this guy, Doc Marquis, R.I.P., who I had on the show later on a couple times, claimed to be the Illuminati witch, that found Jesus and all this type of thing. Well, nobody ever checked up. Nobody ever cared to check up. He was just some guy. And it was just, but people were still, I think, even as late as 10 years ago, maintaining that. And Corey Good is that's even sooner than 10 years ago. So, I mean, I think that it's easier now to discount those people than it would have been in the 1980s or 90s. But it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to have people that are going to still believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's it. It's really going to depend on the certain subculture or subculture of a subculture that you're in, and how those people. It's like the will to believe, the want. I guess, like a better term, but the want to believe that those people have is going to be really, really powerful.
But like, look at QAnon. The entire thing's based on anonymous sources, like
right.
Whereas like all these things from the past were like a witness or a researcher or someone who has a story who says I was there. They were breeding babies for satanic sacrifices or whatever. But it's weird. We're going to see, I guess we're going to see,
It's weird that not more of the old wave of satanic panic people have come and sort of like sunk their fangs into it in that way. What was the woman? Kathy
O'Brien.
Where is she?
Right.
Where is she?
I think she was from around here. So maybe we should find her.
And that whole, like, the guy who gave the green bomb speech, I think is still alive, like, where's that guy?
Yeah, you'd think they'd be trying to cash in now. Like, see, I told you.
Yeah, or just, even, I mean, I don't know, whatever. I don't want to put horrible ideas out into the universe, but all that stuff.
Hey, Russians, come with the checks. Come with the checks.
That would be
Yeah.
the next thing for anybody that's out there. That there you go. There's your idea. If you wanna cash in, become the one of the you never know. In like about 10 years, you might have the kids that said, "Oh, I was in the dungeon." Because right now, if they're kids, you might start seeing this come out in about in a few years. So
What a
this
dark
shit
place.
will always perpetuate itself, I think. And like I said before, I mean, I said it on the last episode, I would love to do, I don't know, a documentary or a film about someone that just like has just made their life all about this mythology that they have built around themselves. I actually did get to know someone, that Doc Marquis. I got to know him a little bit. I talked to the guy on the phone, and it was like, I think he really came to believe his own bullshit. I honestly do.
The long con.
Yeah. I think psychologically, I think people begin to believe that they actually experienced what they said they did. And then it becomes really, really complex after that. I think liars in and of themselves will tend to believe their own lies. So it's not technically a lie to them if they believe that it was real.
I mean, some of this stuff, it's like who can even say?
But in all this media, I mean, you see the genesis of so much of this stuff. That's what's really fascinating about it to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, same with the the UFO stuff going on now. Like it's really kind of astounding, the way that it's being positioned and the way that it's all just kind of like recycling like a handful of tropes. I mean, like, here's the UFO evidence, which is a NICAP report, and this thing has like like a bunch of people from the Navy involved in it, giving their assessment on UFOs, and it has some really weird shit that's not going to be talked about in this run of Navy. Like, this is this is going to mean nothing, me holding it up, but just so you can see that it exists. This is a table, a spreadsheet of angel hair or gossamer falls associated with UFO sightings. Like, but then, you've got like a whole section on pilots and aviation experts who've seen them. This is like, compiled in the 60s at the NICAP offices in Washington, D.C., which it's amazing that you could have an office of operations for a UFO
Brick and mortar
real one on Connecticut Avenue in Washington, D.C., Northwest D.C. And you've got all kinds of 24 doctors here, a bunch of aeronautics and aerospace people. And then you've got your guys like Leonard Stringfield in here, sort of like your public relations and press relations. Like, this is as official as anything, like the forthcoming report, which is going to be groundbreaking, which we've never seen anything like before. And this is literally that from 1964. What's old is new again, like I said before. Except this shit is cooler. And then you also get things like this that just come down the pipe. This is a George Adamski book published by Gray Barker. And the coolest thing here, which I sadly have not done yet, but I've finished grad school, and on my agenda this week is to go to George Adamski's grave site in Arlington National Cemetery, which is like 20 minutes from where I am right now.
Cool.
And there's a picture of Gray Barker at George Adamski's grave. And, if you like that contactee stuff, in my opinion, I mean, you can't get any better than that.
We look forward to seeing that selfie, man.
Yeah, no, I'll send it over. Yeah, man. I mean, this is classic. They just, reuse the same narrative every however long they need, and what's old is new again.
That's very, very true. Was there anything else that you wanted to show us that you have there?
Let me see if I got anything else super cool. Actually, this is cool. This is a fucking UFO coloring book for kids.
Oh shit.
And I mean, whatever. It looks like it was. So somebody told me that it's actually cobbled out of maybe like Gold Key comics or something like that. And it's just the black and white images for them. But in here, hope I can find it. One of these pages has a portrait that is so obviously it's like they're talking about swamp gas, and it's a picture of Hynek in a kid's coloring book. I'm not going to be able to find it now. That's the problem. Jesus Christ. I should have bookmarked it. There he is. The
Cool.
good doctor. And he's saying, trapped under the winter ice, the gas was released by the spring thaw. The gas was produced by rotting vegetation. Kids coloring book, man. That's just so
That's
fucking
pretty cool.
weird.
Yeah.
That's weird as hell.
What's how long? What's the date on that? Do you know?
Let's see if I can discern it. I think based on the cover, this was published around Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Okay.
But it's like recycled images from 1960s sort of pulp comics.
Gotcha.
MCMLXXVIII. That's 78, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's about.
So
yeah,
this is
that's-
definitely
yeah,
made for Close Encounters.
That's about the same time, right? Okay.
You know what I have is. Oh, go ahead.
That's interesting. Just that's like that's the type of media that's a media that's targeted at children. I think that's pretty cool.
Well, and
You
like
don't
all
see
of us
that
had
much.
experiences with those Time Life books and stuff. Like even though those were sold to families, like they're
Yeah.
really formatted for kids, right? Like
Yeah.
you're buying
Right,
them for
right.
the whole family. But
Yeah.
like, what in God's name? Who buys a
I'm pretty
20
sure that
volume
yeah.
hardback set of stuff with on those topics like UFOs and the occult? And
I'm pretty sure the commercial, I don't remember how it happened, but I'm pretty sure the commercial came on and like my parents just knew they had to get it. Like,
Read the book.
yeah.
yeah, but it's so iconic. I mean, we're all around the same age, I think. How old are you guys?
I'm 44.
I'm going to be turning 38.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to be 40 in 2 weeks. I mean, we all remember those commercials. We all like it's just like tattooed on the back of your brain, man.
Oh yeah, I remember those commercials. I remember Unsolved Mysteries. I remember, all that stuff wedged in between GI Joe and Transformers, bro. I remember
And then
the Dianetics commercials, all that stuff. The erupting volcano.
and I think that's why all three of us are here, to let people know that there was a robust and super fucking cool world of weird UFO and paranormal shit out there, and it's findable, and people should be saving this stuff.
Yeah,
Collect
it needs to be preserved and archived.
It definitely needs to be preserved and archived, but also it just needs to be enjoyed, man. Just
Yeah.
and if you're one of those people, I don't like to have a lot of stuff, archive.org has like an amazing selection of this stuff. And you can get like the thing that I love that I got there are the phone call tapes from New Fork, which was, one of the many UFO groups in the 70s. And this guy has like a velvet voice that's taking these calls. He has an amazing voice, and he's just taking all these calls on sightings. You can download one of all the creature reports that they got. And it's just like, go look around for something that's not on UFO Twitter. I guarantee you it will be more rewarding to you.
Yes, sir. Speaking of the preservation and archiving, do you have methods? I know, like for people who can see this, you definitely keep things in plastic if you can. Do you have like a special box or folders or shelves or anything like
I
that?
don't right now. One day I will. One day, where I'm living now is actually a temporary abode, but at some point, I'd like to get everything bagged up and just put in better order. But
same here with a lot
you
of different like rare books and things like that. I want to start like kind of following archival methods and because even in just like the wear and tear, since I've had some stuff for even short times, you can see it if you don't really like take care of the stuff.
especially a lot of these like pulpy UFO books, they just fall right
They're
out of
just
the binding.
the acid, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, look around used bookstores, man, because a lot of times they don't know what this stuff is and they don't care. Someone dropped it off, they want to get rid of it. You can get a lot of these pulpy UFO books cheap.
Yeah, like you said, you got that report, the Roper report. That was from something the Casey Foundation was wanting to throw out.
Down in Virginia Beach, they still maintain a great library, and a lot of pictures that I've posted over the years on Vintage UFOs are from that library. Anybody can go in there. I don't know what the COVID regulations are, but I think everything's lifting pretty much everywhere now. And the crystals will protect you if you're in there.
Yes, absolutely.
And they had a great collection of zines that they sold, and I know some people bought them, but they still have a great book collection and videos and stuff. They do have the Montauk video there. I don't know. Look around for weird places like that in your town. Just stop posting on Twitter so much, Facebook. I think we'd all be happier, right?
Yeah, no truer words were spoken. Thank you, Chris. This has been awesome to talk to you about this. You're gonna hang out with us for something that people have already heard at this point. But tell people.
Thank you for having me. It was super
man.
cool, man. Thank you. It's
Absolutely,
the highlight of my week.
Yeah. Tell people where they can find your kind of like web presence now that we've like thoroughly bashed Facebook and Twitter.
Well, you can find me on Instagram, of course. Totally different from those things.
Yes, a completely different animal.
I'm at Vintage UFOs, and I just post pictures of stuff like the stuff I've been showing. And I just want to say the only reason that I'm doing it is because there was no other like old UFO stuff account out there. I don't have the best collection, and I don't know the most. So by all means, like somebody else show me up. Like just start your own and start posting stuff, and like I will absolutely bow to your dominance. I'm not here to gatekeep anyone or be like I'm the guy, because I'm just a guy.
Absolutely.
So, Vintage UFOs.
As are we. And you actually got in touch with us, and now here you are on the show. So we're going to go ahead and close the show. We'll close the show out here. You guys can see, if you're watching this on the YouTube channel, in the background, you have seen the one of the versions of everybody that is at the Strange Realities Conference, October 15th through 17th. That's SIR Nashville. That's not Sir Nashville.
Sir Nashville.
That's been revised on one of the other ones. But you guys can see up there the people that we have speaking: Dr. Stephen Finley, Alan Greenfield, Soraya Askath, Tim Banal, Dr. Future, Jose Herrera, Josh Cutchin, Kiki Dombrowski, Nathan Isaac, P.D. Newman, Steven Snyder, a.k.a. Recluse, who Chris has been also on his show, The Farm, and David Metcalf, Timothy Renner, Steve Stockton, and, of course, last but not least, Ren Collier. And
there's an entire other row that we can't see at the moment too.
Most everyone will be there at the Strange Realities Conference,
in person and online hybrid.
Yes.
And before we let you go, though, Chris, I do just got to ask you, man, how much Topo Chico do you go through?
So Surfiel is asking me this because when I'm on the Conspirinormal Zoom chat, I'm always
Man,
drinking
just
this.
pounding them.
Well, here's the deal, man.
We're always pounding Modelo's, and you're just like pounding
Yeah.
sixes of that.
Pot pies and Modelo's. I'm I've always been a seltzer guy, but when the pandemic hit, I just started buying. I was like, "Fuck it, man! I could die. Like, I'm just gonna drink the best sparkling water I can get," and now I can't stop. So I probably like a 12-pack a week, which is
dang okay.
It's not that bad. It's like $12 or something. You know, like you space that out over a week. It's acceptable.
Well, it's not bad for you. So,
what if it is though? That's gonna be my conspiracy.
You only live
angle.
once, man.
Yeah, it's true. Nah, that's a fact.
YOLO. All right, guys. Also, guys, we have our Patreon. That is, Surfiel can tell you where to find that. If you guys want to contribute to the cause and join the secret societies,
you could be one of the elect, like Chris, and join our Patreon secret societies. $5 a month gets you into the International Association of Conspirinormalists, where you get an extra bonus episode every week, as well as communications from the center of the order. $10 gets you into the Mystic Crew, where you can join our monthly balls of revelry, and you get to see presentations that are exclusive to that. And it's kind of like a cool little incubator for new ideas and cutting edge research of people that you'd recognize from the show, good friends of the show, and other researchers. That's every month for the $10 level. $20 and up gets you into the Ancient Circle of Strange Realities, where you get the real deal final secrets of the Illuminati and a VIP experience at the Strange Realities Conference.
So many secrets.
As well as all the previous benefits. So check us out on patreon.com/Conspirinormal and begin your journey.
All right, YouTube Conspirinormal Podcast, and like us on Facebook. No one's done that in a while. So, all right, guys, remember Strange Realities Conference, October 15th through 17th in Nashville, and also online too. So we will be probably running a special at some point on the in-person admission. So, all right, guys, we'll talk to you next time on Conspirinormal.